Good morning. I'm going to say good morning, everybody, because it's sure morning here. I'm going to see if my clicker works. Yes, it does. So let's talk about Sustainable Development Goals. I'm Jan Fransen, University of Minnesota. I'm the Service Lead for Research Information Management Systems. The University of Minnesota is a large institution. You heard a little bit yesterday in the keynote about land-grant institutions. That's what the University of Minnesota is. We have about 67,000 students. We are spread out across the state of Minnesota with 5 separate campuses. And one thing that's really important about us, as a land grant, we are very tied to the state of Minnesota itself. So remember that as we talk a little bit more about how we got into this whole sustainable development goal thing. The University of Minnesota just came out with a new strategic plan that has 5 major pillars. And the one that I want to talk about is the third one there. Oh, slides, there we go. We serve the state and we impact the world. And the word we're using on campus, which is starting to sound like an actual word to me, is intersections. Minnesota intersecting with the state and with the rest of the world. That ties in pretty much perfectly with the Sustainable Development Goals. Drilling down into intersections, some of the actions that we're talking about are building a fully sustainable future is a big goal. And within that, demonstrating the state and the worldwide leadership in sustainability, environmental teaching, research, and convening power. As we talked about how are we going to show that we are doing these things, the thing that came to our minds was the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, they were launched back in 2015, but really I just started hearing about them maybe 6 months ago, and now I'm hearing about them all the time. There's such a great way for people anywhere working anywhere in any kind of research to look at the goals and see their own work themselves represented in it. And that makes them great for looking not just at medicine, not just at the sciences, not just at engineering, but at everything, at arts and humanities, at social sciences, at everything that we do at the University of Minnesota for the state, for the country, for the world. So the Sustainable Development Goals, how do we evaluate how we are doing with those? Because that's what our Board of Regents wants to know. They want to see some evidence that we're making a contribution here. So we're looking pretty closely now at the Times Higher Education World University Rankings and how they evaluate the Sustainable Development Goals for an institution. We have not submitted yet. We will hopefully be submitting for this next year. Not very many U.S. institutions have submitted yet. It's been much more popular in other places. So when this first started to come up, I did a little digging and very quickly found that the Sustainable Development Goals for THE are measured, getting used to the clicker. I'm going to try one more time. There we go. Oh, no. Are measured using Scopus queries. So the part of the metrics around Sustainable Development Goals, about 27% for evaluating each one of the goals, is based on publication data that comes right out of Scopus. So I've referenced there, I've got the citation there to a link you can go to see literally all the queries for each of the goals that are used by the Times Higher Education evaluation. Well, I was looking at that and I was thinking about experts at Minnesota and thinking about how do we highlight what it is we're doing with regard to each of these goals. So this is what our portal looks like. That is the gorgeous ceiling in Walter Library where I, used to work. Haven't been there in 7 months. And then below that, you see what we've done with the banner. So you will recall, of course, we were able to turn on that banner for COVID-19, and we had it that way for, I don't know, maybe a month. And then George Floyd was murdered just a couple of miles from our university. And we decided maybe we should focus on something really relevant to our community right at this time. So now we're using that banner to highlight work in racism and racial justice. But the fact that we had that banner gave me the idea that maybe we could use something like that to highlight our work in each of the SDGs. What we wanted to do was take those Scopus queries, we've got Scopus data, right? That's our main publication data, and marry those to the icons within that make up the SDGs, the one that you see on pretty much any website that talks about Sustainable Development Goals. And so I turned to Farah and I said, Farah, can you use Scopus queries in a peer portal? Farah, can we add a whole bunch of icons to the peer portal? Hey, Farah, this seems like something that every institution might want to do. Couldn't Elsevier just do it for us? So I'll turn it over to Farah.
Thanks, Jen. So when we started to discuss the requirement and the kind of display and flexibility that Jan was looking to represent the SDGs in Pure, there are a few main or key points that we outlined. So it has to be a customizable query for each SDG, each goal. The results should showcase all of the research content in your Pure instance around each topic for that SDG. And then we need to find a space where we could fit in all these multiple icons and still, make it look presentable. So we decided to explore the descriptive text box in the homepage. Here is an example of a few of how Pure clients are using this space already. So you can use some HTML code to do different kinds of things. You can, as an example here, there is another banner on racial justice and racial discrimination, in addition to the COVID banner on Montclair's side. Princeton, Augusta, they have links on their home pages to outside pages to help their faculty on uploading or updating their profile, adding help text resources, etc. You can also add links to your campus pages and stuff like that. So we wanted to, thinking about it on these lines, we want to explore this further. As Jan said about having the display on the homepage, so this is the area for in the back end to make this to set up the thumbnails. So we've got under the admin tab, under portal configurations, you go styling and layout, and basically in this box you can stack multiple formats of pictures, links, video, carousel, etc. And then we use the Scopus query, so the one that Jan showed in the previous slide. We use those Scopus queries for each of the goals. We optimize that for Pure. And I just highlighted some key elements in the Scopus query, like there are, nested logic operations, there's and, or, and it's a little more complex. We adapted that to Pure to make it, to maintaining the same logic that's in the Scopus query, but shorter and more adapted to Pure. And in Pure, you have the ability to upload the pictures as well. So whatever collateral you have, add it to the Pure database, and then construct this kind of A tag in the code. This gives us the result of. Did I skip too many? Yeah, I did. So stacking the code in that way shows you all of the goals like this in the homepage to explore Minnesota's UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then if you click on any one of those goals, it will show you all the research content in Experts in Minnesota for those terms in the query.
And now it's back to me. So if you look closely there at the HTML, this is what we have in our query, in our portal right now. You'll see that the hrefs there are Z links. That's our university's URL shortener. I have each one of them set up on a Z link with SDG dash and the number, and that way it can be reused on other sites too. So we have a University of Minnesota SDG initiative. The names just get longer and longer with more acronyms. And they are making use of these very same queries on their own site. They have the icon set up. You click on an icon, you go to Experts of Minnesota to see the result. So we've been able to reuse it in that way too. However, this is not without problems. This is the biggest problem that we have been hitting. The problem is you cannot have a URL string that is as long as what those Scopus queries would equate to once you do all the translation. And that is, of course, how the Pure portal works. You do a search, and your search is appended to the URL. So once you, even if you get the query looking right and short enough for the initial query, as soon as you start hitting the filters, that URL, it's getting appended, and it will get too long, and you'll end up with a bad request. So to get around that problem, I had to try to figure out, at least as best as I could, what the most relevant terms were for our institution. So I went through, and maybe the slide will advance. Let's try again. No. I went through and I scraped all the terms, and I searched each of the terms to see how many profiles would I get, how many research units, how many research outputs. And then I just picked the ones that gave me the most results and still gave me a short enough URL that I could do a little bit of filtering and things like that. I don't love that. You know, if new work starts happening using keywords that I'm not accounting for, it's not going to show up. Also, it just does not have anywhere near the precision while still keeping the breadth of the original Scopus queries. As Farah said, it's a lot more, the Boolean is a lot more complicated than what we're doing here with just a bunch of ORs. So I don't love it, but I kind of like it. It's giving us mostly what we want. But oh my goodness, Elsevier, could you help us out here? It seems like SDGs are kind of important, and I'm really lucky here because I can see Christian on my screen right now. Elsevier has the data and they have the queries and that align with the goals in a really transparent way. Seems like a feature a lot of us could use. So, you know, Christian, maybe you can help us out on the portal. And that's what I've got. Do you have questions or comments for us?
Thanking you for kicking off day 3 with a very front and center topic, sustainability. We have great audience engagement here. We have one audience member participant who's asked, well, first, really interesting. And question is, do you have a sense of how these links are being used by visitors to your portal site?
A good question, and not yet. They're just too new. I think we launched this maybe 2 weeks ago. I have not started looking at the hit results on the Z links. We do have the ability to see how many times our URL is clicked, but I was using them so extensively for a while as I was testing. I wanted to wait a little while before I see how much use they're really getting. The site that I mentioned, the UMN SDG initiative site, that is public, but it hasn't been launched officially yet, so it's not linked all over the place yet. I can only say that the feedback I'm getting internally from university administration has been great. That we have these data, it's now being surfaced in this way, and that's been great. It's what I'm telling them is this was easy to do, but only because we've been collecting these data for so long. We've built such a nice set that we can now use for different purposes.
Got it. Thank you. A couple more questions. Can the HTML be shared?
Sure.
Yeah,
Great. Happy to do that.
I think people are eager to get their good work out about sustainability based on what, you know, you've set a framework. You're one of the first clients. It seems like you're one of the first clients to do this. So why not use the groundwork that you've already, you know, put a great deal of time and effort into? Another question, could these queries be used in Pure itself if you don't have a portal?
Turn that over to Farah. I have no idea.
Yeah.
We've always had a portal.
Yeah, it's for Farah.
I'm thinking about it. Well, without the Pure portal, I mean, we still have the resources in Scopus and Farah, so you know, you can use those queries in the other platforms as well. But this code is specifically for the Pure portal.
And I'll
Okay.
just say that Christian just chatted me and said he will be talking about this later, so attend his session.
Yeah, great synergy between what Minnesota is doing and all the roadmap discussions going on. I think Christian shared some really interesting information. I think that was 2 days ago, although, you know, the days are blurring together. So I'm eager to hear about the portal updates from Christian later as well. Another question, Jan, do you have a plan to monitor and update the search query to include new concepts?
Oh man, I hope not. I know how I would do that if I had to, but I am really hoping that that in a very in a release that's coming very soon, we will see Elsevier put in what Christian has talked about in the roadmap. So I won't need to. I will if I have to, but because of the labor involved, I'll basically wait until somebody complains and says they're not in, and look and see what keywords are we missing that we need to add. Because, man, that people getting that bad request error, that's not what we want to see. So I'm going to keep it pretty narrow.
Okay, got it. So currently, you're seeing on the portal the research output that you'd expect to see based on what is at the back end of Pure in terms of sustainability development goals.
Yeah, by and large we are. There are things that I would change again if I could make the URL longer or do something with the search string to say promote newer work. There are some cases where the work that's getting surfaced is work that we did many years ago, and that's the words are matching, so it's coming up at the top. That's not ideal. We're not doing anything to limit dates. I don't really want to limit dates, but I would like to adjust the relevancy if I could. And you know, maybe Elsevier, that's something to consider. Is optimizing whatever you do for the most current work that we're doing, while still allowing for the full set of what we have done over time.
Okay. So I think we have time for one or two more questions. So here's one. You stated at the beginning of your talk, Jan, that SDGs are less known in the U.S. Can you note any reaction you got to SDGs from your research community? You know, the intersections concept.
Yeah, it's interesting. The SDGs first came to my attention. I sort of vaguely heard about them, but then they came to my attention when our vice president for research contacted us and said, hey, can you do something with this? And had seen an example from someone else that showed what they were doing related to the SDGs. And boy, when your vice president for research says something and starts asking a bunch of people about it, it gets a lot of traction. I haven't heard anything personally directly from the researchers. Again, it's pretty new for us to be talking about with regard to experts at Minnesota. I will say that when I did a search in our Pure Just for Sustainable Development Goals, people, of course, have been working on this. Researchers who work in areas that are prominent in the SDGs certainly are already aware, but maybe just relative to their individual work and not showcasing the work of the entire university.
Okay, thank you. So we are drawing to the final seconds. Again, Jan, I'd like to thank you for showing your use cases at the University of Minnesota, and Farah for also joining us to kick off day 3 with the front and center topic of sustainability. Jan, people are chomping at the bit for the HTML as they want to replicate what you're doing. So I think we all look forward to keeping abreast of the developments on your end.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll be posting something on the in the Pure Community Slack.
Okay, excellent. Looking forward to it.